Hey guys, Shane McMurray from the Wedding Report. In this episode, I interview Marissa, who lives in Boston and is getting married in Atlanta, Georgia area. Enjoy. All right, so let's talk about your wedding, but let's talk about how you guys met first. So tell me about how you guys met and how that all happened and all that good stuff.
Okay, so my fiance Jeremy and I met actually at a friend's wedding.
Nice.
Yeah, so I guess I had seen him like around Atlanta in our early 20s. So I had seen him around, but I'd never met him before. And we ran into each other again at a mutual friend's wedding and pretty much started dating almost immediately. All of our friends were really shocked though when we started dating because I think they had thought that we had already met before. So when we started dating, so many people came out of the woodwork just saying like, I can't believe you guys hadn't met before. I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, we found a lot of little acquaintances and things in common that we had that we just didn't know about.
Yeah, usually you discover that right after you meet somebody and you start kind of hanging out and then become friends or dating or whatever. Think, oh, hey, it was already there to begin with.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like one of my best friends and his best friend dated for like 6 years. A lot of my friends from college are his friends from high school, and it's just all these little connections that we had were already in place.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
So tell me about the proposal. How did that take place?
I had no idea what was happening. Um, Came out of nowhere. I was completely shocked. I think I have a lot of it blacked out. But we were on vacation with my family in Cancun for Thanksgiving. We have a timeshare there, and so he came along with us and planned to do it sometime. Then he just was waiting for an opportunity to arise. And one night we were down on the beach, and it was a full moon, and we were walking along the beach, and he just started saying all this really sweet stuff, like, you know, you're my best friend. I love all the time we got together, and I have no idea what's happening. So I'm just like, oh, you too. Like, I feel the same way. This is really sweet. um, and we walked down to like this like a cabana overlooking the ocean, and he's like freaking out, and I'm like, why are you being so quiet? Why are you being so weird?
Yeah.
And I find out later it's because he almost dropped the ring in the ocean.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so he was like, let's walk back up to the beach. I'm like, okay, we just got here, but all right.
Yeah.
We turn around and walk back, and we're like walking together, and then I kind of like feel him drop off behind me. So I turn around like, what are you doing? And he just looks at me like with this look on his face that I've never seen and will never see again, and gets down on one knee, and I'm freaking out and like, is this real? And eventually I say yes when I'm just like, oh, it's real. He has a ring and everything.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I was very surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny how guys like get totally like crazy and just like we're freaking out. I mean, you think
Yeah.
you guys are freaking out, but we're like so freaking out. It's unbelievable.
That's what he said. Like afterwards, he was like, I feel like I'm going to be sick. Like, well, I'm glad you weren't. That would have been very unromantic.
Yeah, totally right.
Yeah,
So you guys live in Boston,
we do.
but you're
Yeah.
getting married in Georgia. So
Yes.
do you consider that like a destination wedding, or would you just say it? Oh, we're just getting married at home.
Um, I feel like I'm kind of considering it a destination wedding just because we have so many people coming in from out of town. His family is mostly in Ohio, and some are coming in from Puerto Rico. And then I also have some of my flight attendant friends live abroad now. So we have friends coming from Australia. So we're trying to plan it in a way to where, you know, there's fun things to do all weekend, or we're just trying to be conscious of the fact that people are traveling in for it.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so tell me about the wedding. What's going on there? Where you guys getting married? What's
Okay. So it's been kind of hard, especially because it is planning it from out of state. I've been
Yep.
flying in with my job. I'm lucky enough to where I do have the opportunity to fly in and view places. We chose a venue called Yarborough Mill. It's about an hour north of Atlanta. I looked at venues in the city to try to keep it as easy as possible, but I think I was really set on getting married outside in kind of like a wood situation.
Hmm.
And that was the closest I could find. So we settled on that venue.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Um, and so what would you say, like, let's talk about some of the some of the struggles. Let's talk about some of the good stuff. Let's talk about the struggles first, and then we'll talk about the good stuff afterwards. So what do you
Okay.
like? What are the things that are like, man, this is really hard, or this is the struggles that I'm going through?
Yeah. So initially finding a venue was probably the hardest part, I would say, because I didn't realize how far in advance places are booked. Like way out. I started looking at venues in 2018, the beginning of 2019, for our 2020 wedding, and a lot of the weekends were already booked up. There were just a lot of restrictions in just like the time frame sense, and then
Right.
also kind of finding the right venue that included like enough stuff to where I felt like it equaled the price tag that was coming with it.
Hmm.
Um, some venues weren't including things, and then I would have to kind of like price it out on the side to really come up with what the venue actually costs,
Hmm.
or will cost. So I think that was the struggle of that. I had to do a lot more research than I thought. I thought I would just be like, I like it, I'll take it.
Yeah, right.
But there were a lot of logistics, such as just tables and chairs. Some of the venues I was looking at for outdoor venues, and some of them didn't even have bathrooms. So then I was having to price out like nice trailer toilets, and then I had to add that to the venue cost just to make it a clean slate.
Yeah, yeah,
So
crazy, crazy. What, so about the budget stuff, I mean, did you guys have a budget?
at first I had an idea of like a number that sounded right, and then when we started looking at places, I had to come to reality really quickly that there's no way I could do that.
Yeah.
But we do have a budget. Right now we're doing good. I
Yeah, I was
think
gonna
we're
ask
probably,
you, are you on target or are you over? How's it going?
right now we're under,
Mhm.
but we still have a few things to get. So I'm pricing those out and just making sure that it does kind of I want to stay in the ballpark of our budget. I do hear always that people go over and that's not unusual. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of like, a lot of my friends got married last year. And so I've gotten some good tips in that, like, don't forget you have to pay for catering for all the people that are there working your event. So not even just your people, you have to feed the DJ, you have to feed the officiant, you have to feed all these people working the event as well, and you have to
Yeah.
add that to your catering. I'm trying to think of things like that, like, oh, I have to tip all these people as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think we're going to be okay though. Our venue, a lot of it is DIY, and a big part that's helping is that we could bring our own beer, liquor into the
That's cool.
venue.
Yeah.
And then there's not even a corkage fee. You just have to have a licensed liquor distributor
Oh,
um,
okay.
as a bartender. So that's helping us save quite a bit of money as well.
Yeah, because alcohol can be pretty expensive.
Yeah, I was looking at some venues, and during the tour, they show us the liquor package. And especially in Georgia, there's a lot of liquor laws that I was unaware of.
Really?
We had to pay, we would have to like file a bunch of like red tape paperwork just to like pass out alcohol at a venue. So
Really?
not only were you buying a liquor package, you would also have to pay fee upon fee upon fee to just even have it on the property.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah.
So does the getting the licensed bartender kind of get around that a little bit?
I guess so. I think it's because, yeah, because they have a license
Distribute?
to distribute. Yeah. And then you have to get insurance packages for the property as well, because you are throwing an event, like something could happen.
Yeah.
The venue has to protect itself. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand with liability issues.
Do you get that with the venue, or did you guys have to go figure that out separately?
You have to do it separately.
Wow. Did they tell you
Yeah.
you had to do that, or?
Yeah, they tell you when you're like having the
Well, that's
meeting.
good.
Yeah, yeah. In my initial contacts of asking about like, how much would a venue be for a Saturday wedding, they would just kind of give me like, 6,000 or just, but then you'd go in and be like, oh, but if you want the tables and chairs, it's this. You have to pay liability. You have to get insurance.
Hmm.
So you find that out eventually. But initially, I think it's a very fine like dotted line. thing, which I think was one of the biggest financial surprises for me in throwing the wedding.
Yeah, I was going to
Um,
ask you next, what was the biggest cost surprise around like, oh crap, I didn't think about that.
yeah, I would say probably that. And really just venue cost. I don't know where my head was at thinking that like
Mhm.
what they would be at price tag wise. I'm okay with spending a good amount of money on the venue, especially because I didn't want to change locations for the reception. So I knew that there would be kind of a price tag for that.
Yeah.
But I think my hardest part was that a lot of these venues um, have very specific time limits
Mhm.
on how long your event can be. So I was looking at these beautiful venues and I was like, oh, this amount of money isn't bad. But then you get the rental for 6 hours and that includes setup and takedown. So really you're only having like a 4-hour event for $8,000. So I think that was the biggest surprise to me
Interesting.
was that, yeah, I had to find kind of a decent like price tag that equaled the amount of time that I want for the whole event. I don't want to be rushed. I don't want to not have the time that I want for that day.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to be rushed during their wedding.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seemed very much like a get out. We have another wedding tomorrow kind of thing, which I understand. They are businesses.
Yeah.
But when you're spending that much money and it's, you know, the biggest event of your life, you
Yeah.
want to feel like you're getting the attention that
Yeah.
you want for that day.
Yeah, for sure. So I take it, family, friends, people helping out with the budget, or is it just you and Jeremy taking care of
Family is pitching in. I think a lot of that is also that initially we were like, we're gonna elope,
it?
and I'm the only daughter, so
Yeah.
they were like, well, what if we help? So we're getting some help, but then we're supplementing the rest with our own finances.
That's good. Yeah. So thinking about the vendors and the services and the products that you had to buy, what went well with those types of things?
Um, I think what went well is that there really is just an abundance of vendors online that I can find pretty easily. My biggest challenge is that I am a flight attendant. I don't have a normal job. I'm not just in an office with downtime being like, I can look at websites. So honestly, Instagram, Facebook, those were huge tools for me in finding vendors because between flights, I could sit on the plane and just search hashtags. I would look at, Atlanta florist, Atlanta hair and makeup, Atlanta weddings.
Hmm.
And whenever I saw something that I liked, I would click it. And if I liked their page and all of their stuff, I would then go to their website and request quoting and talk to them about what I'm doing or what I want for the day. So I was able to kind of find vendors pretty easily and a good amount of vendors with different styles. And that's how I got like my photographer. That's how I got the catering and bridesmaids dresses. Even I'm just looking at bridesmaids dresses on Instagram.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot that way. I found hair and makeup through then Instagram. I also kind of just crowdsourced Facebook. I would just say, hey, I'm throwing a wedding. I'm looking for a DJ. Does anybody know anybody? And I would start getting recommendations, and I could kind of word of mouth find people that way.
Great. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say didn't go well on the flip side of that?
What didn't go well, I think, was some response time. Because of my job, I'm not on my phone. I don't have access to my phone for phone calls. So I would request quotes and explain, I'm a flight attendant. I'm not going to be really available via phone call unless we set something up. Here's my email address. This is the best way. And I would still be getting just phone calls and I would call them back and then there'd be like this lag and then I'd be out of the country. So I think just response time was the most difficult part. And then also, yeah, actually, just really just communication was kind of hard.
But it
And
sounds
also,
like, yeah, it sounds like though that even though you asked to be communicated with a certain way because of your job, they didn't really respect that.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of turned me off to just the whole thing in general. If they responded that way on the second time of me contacting them, like I would call them back, still somehow not be able to get a hold of them, leave a message, but then also reiterate, like, I am, as soon as I hang up the phone, I'm gonna be on a plane
Yeah.
until 11 o'clock at night, and then I get up at 5 a.m. for another 4-hour flight. Please email me. And then they would still call me back and be like, it's really difficult to get in touch with you. I'm like, I'm not the one being, I'm not the one being difficult. So that kind of, and then at that point I would just kind of
I'm
cross them
done
off
with
my
it.
list, only
Yeah.
because that's how the rest of this planning process is going to go. I'm not going to be available. I need someone who kind of understands that
That's
I'm
cool.
really planning this on the fly.
But that's good. That's good information for vendors to understand that, look, if someone specifically, I mean, because not always you don't always get that from the customer. How do you want to be communicated with? But if you
Yeah.
specifically get that from the customer, it's very important that you communicate with them in the way that they're asking you to communicate with them. I mean, that's just that just seems pretty standard.
Yeah, it seemed like common sense. And then it kind of made me uncomfortable because I felt like I was being the difficult one.
Mhm.
So I actually crossed out a lot of people in that manner, and that
Thank
I
you.
just kind of felt like it made the relationship unstable. And I
Yeah.
don't want that added stress in wedding planning of that, I can't get a hold of this vendor.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit, but so all of the vendors that you source, you actually source them through Instagram, Facebook?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
I did kind of like for venues, I was looking at like Wedding Wire, the Knot, initially, and I think that's honestly the one that I found. Though I think I found on Instagram because they hashtag everything, and I kind of got sucked into the look of it because they post real weddings, but then also behind the scenes of them getting set up. So I
Mhm.
found that kind of fascinating. Yeah, Instagram was really helpful.
Did you find the behind the scenes part more interesting than the actual real photos or?
um, Kind of. I kind of liked that on their Instagram they didn't just show it set up for weddings. They would
Mhm.
show it as a blank slate, and then they would show like the like Home Depot size buckets of flowers. Like our florist just showed up. We're about to get ready for this wedding. So it was kind of cool to see the process and how involved they were. I
Mhm.
really appreciated that. It kind of felt more personal that way. It wasn't just like a look at this clean slate of like a Pinterest worthy wedding. It was kind of more real life. So I enjoyed that. Not every bride will, but I'm a very DIY hands-on person. So it kind of helped me envision like, oh, well, I want it to look like this. So I see the blank space before even going to the venue. So I knew I could kind of make it look the way I wanted it to.
Right, right. So honeymoon, you guys going on a honeymoon?
We are. I think we're kind of recently talking about maybe putting it off until the next year, only because of just time off wise. It's
Yeah.
going to be hard. So I think right now the plan is to go to Italy though and do
Mhm.
like a full like 2 week and a half like honeymoon.
Yeah. Okay.
But we're still kind of in the talks though about maybe pushing it off another year. And if we do that, we'll do just like a quick weekend getaway to like an island or somewhere closer.
Oh, that's probably smart, right? I mean, I know both you guys are really busy, so.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give couples that are getting married today? What specific advice would you give them? I mean, if you were to think about the one thing, what would you tell them?
Um, I would say definitely budget. Have at least a ballpark figure in your head that you want to stay near. Because once you start looking at places and then all the add-ons, it's going to be very easy if you don't have a limit to just keep saying yes to things. And then when you see the dotted line at the bottom, you're going to have some sticker shock. Um, so I would say kind of sit down, have a nice dinner, and kind of daydream out loud to each other about what you want your day to look like and feel like, what's important to you in that day. Because that kind of helped us in deciding where we want to spend our money. There's other things that we're going to be doing a lot ourselves. Like the groom from the wedding that we met at is actually going to be our officiant.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, so we found all these little personal ways to kind of save money. And then we decided just amongst ourselves that the most important thing for us at the wedding was the food, the liquor,
Yeah.
and photography.
Yeah.
That's where we wanted to be spending our budget on. Everything else was just fluff that we could kind of supplement ourselves without having to get a decorator or anything. So I would say, yeah, definitely sit down, and that won't be every couple's experience. They might decide that they want it to look a certain way. They want to spend the money on the dress. So I would say find like the top 3 things that you are unwilling to compromise on, and really start there, and then work your way backwards to the other things that aren't quite as important.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great advice. Thanks. So for businesses, what, on the business side, what do you think businesses could do better to help you? I mean, what advice would you give them?
I would say if you're advertising your venue in any way on any of the wedding sites, go ahead and have your wedding packages on those sites.
Mm-hmm.
Don't like, oh, you have to type in your email address and then someone will contact you. That might be easy for some brides who have time, but I kind of didn't have time to be chasing people down when really I knew if it was out of my price range, I would not continue looking at it. So I really enjoyed it when venues had like a little attachment or a PDF file that said, for 7-day weddings, this amount, for Saturday weddings, this amount, everything that's included in that amount, and then who to contact from there. I found that really helpful, already having that information right there. So maybe think of adding that to those sites. I know it adds a personal touch to have them contact, but we're going to contact you if we like what we see.
Do you think like having starting prices help, or do you because every wedding's kind of different and custom,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very difficult to say, oh, it's a fixed price, right? Because
Yeah. Well,
different.
some places I saw was more of a price range,
Oh, that's
depending on what you wanted, because there were different. A lot of them that I did see though had a base, and it said for this amount, like this is how many tables and chairs you get. This is how long the event is. Really, I mean, as long as it's like a ballpark figure, it kind of gives you more of an idea. And then in your own budget what you have to play with to make it what you want it to be. But I saw some that had like a price range of like $1,000 depending on what you wanted. And that at least kind of gave me an idea of what I would be dealing with.
Yeah, because right then you can qualify yourself to go, yeah, you know what, I think we can do this. I like this place. I like the pictures. I think we can do this one. Let's go talk to them, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of disheartening finding this beautiful place and thinking like, oh, this is it. This is dreamland. And then having to do the legwork to find out the price, and you're already in your head having your wedding there. And then you get the price and you're just like, oh, yeah. I don't think that's for me. So it was just kind of just not disappointing, just disheartening of just like, oh, back to the websites again, to start the whole process over.
How often did that happen?
Quite a few times, actually. I would say about 4 or 5 times. I was like, the location is great. It's not too far from the city. It's everything that I want. But then of course it'd be like, we're an exclusive like place that only does 8 weddings a year. And I'm like, well, that would have been good to know before, looking at all the pictures and, all that stuff.
Yeah. So a little bit of disclosure up front about either exclusivity or pricing would totally help you make a better decision about that. It would at least alleviate some of the stress, it sounds like.
Yeah. It would just help, it would help us narrow down the list and then pursue what is realistic for us to have. Or it would also give us kind of an idea of like, okay, well, this is on the line of what we can afford. Let's go back into the budget, find some wiggle room in another area to make this venue happen. I think it would definitely help in the planning process and the decision making.
Awesome. Marissa, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
All right. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Please share it with other people. Also, if you're getting married or you work in the wedding industry, I would love to interview and share your information with other people. send me a text 520-399-8580 or shoot me an email at letschat@wedding.report.